Yep.
Okay, 7:30, we'll call the meeting to order. This meeting of the Reading Municipal Light Department Board of Commissioners is being videotaped at the RMLD's offices at 230 Ash Street, Reading. Meeting is being videotaped for distribution to the community TV stations in North Reading, Wilmington, and Linfield. I will read the code of conduct, although I think we don't have too many troublemakers in the room. We have no guests. We have a member of the select board here, Vanessa Alvarado. Yes, thank you for coming tonight. The RMLD Board of Commissioners recognizes the importance of hearing public comment at the discretion of the chair and on items on the official agenda, as well as those not on the official agenda. We ask that all questions or comments from the public be directed to the chair, and that all parties, including members of the RMLD board, act in a professional and courteous manner when addressing the board and responding to comments. Once recognized by the chair, all persons addressing the board shall state their name and address prior to speaking. And Dave Hennessy, who is the chair, he's not here tonight, so I am Dave Talbot, and I am vice chair and sitting in his chair today. And Dennis Kelly is here from the CAB. Hello, Dennis, how are you?
Good, thanks.
So now with that, are we on public comment? Or are we? Yes. Is there any public comment? No? Citizen Advisory Board report, or none?
We really didn't meet much this summer. Last night was our first meeting. We did a reorg, and we talked about the upcoming budget, and that was about it. Right. What night we're going to meet, and so it's pretty uneventful.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And I guess Ms. Alvarado is the liaison. If there is an item on the agenda, if you have any public comment that you'd like to make as liaison, and there's no obligation, but it's not there on the agenda, so I just thought I'd give you the opportunity.
Thank you, but nothing else.
Okay. And that will do it for public comment, given that there are no additional members of the public in the room. Okay, so that moves us on to the approval of the board minutes. And can I have a...
Yeah, I'll move that the board approve the meeting minutes of June 21st, 2018 and July 19th, 2018 on the recommendation of the general manager.
Okay.
July 19th, actually.
Yeah, it's crossed out, I think.
Crossed out?
Yeah.
Who was the secretary that? Who was the secretary that night? I don't know.
So did we have a second or not?
Second.
Yeah, the motion to remove the July.
Okay, good. So okay, fine. And adding that, do we have a vote? Yes, all in favor? Aye, that's 4, and all opposed, that's 4-0, with Dave absent. And now we move to the general manager. Sorry, I'm supposed to give a report here according to this agenda that, sorry, Dennis, you already gave your report? Nothing more to say? There's listed here that I'm supposed to report on a subcommittee of the payment.
Mr. Chairman, you want me to talk about that?
Yes, please do. Just to explain the agenda item.
So this is the subcommittee that's still alive on the payment to the town of Reading. That committee, we really need to schedule another meeting of that committee, because I really would like to make a presentation in the November town meeting and have this thing wrapped up once and for all. I have some ideas that I'm going to share right now with some of you at this point. The study that we had indicates that we've got a problem in terms of raising enough capital going forward at this point. One of the things that I have thought about, and again we'll discuss it more in depth in the committee, is actually freezing the payment to the town for the next 2 to 3 years, and after that potentially going to something based upon kilowatt hours at that point. Now that kilowatt hours, if they go down, there may be less to the town, and we may have to consider at that point maybe some sort of phase-in at that point. But it is something that I've thought about. I just don't think we can just cut the town payment today. But we consider really freezing for maybe the next 2 or 3 years, and going and try to get something more aligned with the kilowatt hours at this point. So that's kind of some of my thoughts at this point. And again, I'd like to, Tracy, if you can maybe contact everybody and let's get the committee started. I mean, Mr. Enzinger and you're on the committee too. Vanessa's on the committee too. Yeah, go ahead.
Has the report been released? I know it was discussed some months ago.
Oh, do you want to actually step up so that we can hear you from the microphone? Yeah. Not to put you on the spot, but nobody can hear from the tables.
Actually, we require everybody to do that, so
Yeah.
that's a good thing.
So just to recognize Vanessa Alvarado, member of the select board.
Thank you. Has the report on the financial long-term outlook for RMLD been completed?
I believe so. Is it not?
Well, you wrote your report on the payment issue. I don't know if you want to address that question.
You're asking for a longer-term financial?
My understanding from several months ago was that there was going to be some effort made to look into the broader financial health of RMLD, and not necessarily specific to the payment. And there was some discussion that would take about 6 months. That was a few months back.
Well, I think that okay, we'll go back a little bit. That changed a little bit. I think there was some discussion about utilizing an outside agency to do a study that was going to take about 6 months.
Correct.
Okay? And then I had gotten directive that we didn't want to spend the money on that. So I, being qualified to do the study, did one on financial outlook, capital projects, and did a projection and provided my board with a study.
Okay.
And everyone is in receipt of that study.
Yes,
And that,
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you convene this meeting, I think that study should be discussed and
Right. Well,
so
I think
everybody's
also,
on the same page as what.
you know, if the select board doesn't have it, I think we should release it to them
Right.
forthwith.
No reason not to release it, is there?
Should be released forthwith at this point, if you don't have it, from what you're saying.
If I overlooked it, if it was in fact communicated to me, I apologize, but I will review it in advance of
Okay.
that subcommittee
Great.
meeting.
Yeah.
Chair.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess.
Look, I recognize you, I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Sorry.
It's fine.
Force of habit, sorry.
No problem. As you were.
All chairs. So, I have the same recollection as Colleen. I think the only pause I would say is Colleen provided, and some of that was also, because I think we should recognize her involvement. The CAB had also expressed a similar recommendation, I think, around not spending money that might otherwise really be put to better use, because basically Colleen has all the information to be able to provide the projections. The only thing I would say about releasing it forthwith is that was sort of right before we kind of got into summertime, or in summertime, so I don't think as commissioners we've actually provided Colleen with any feedback. So what I wouldn't want to do is present it as a report that has received, vetting, because we don't want you to spend time reading something and then have addition, 6B revised. So I don't know. So to me, it sounds like we should, and I thought that was the next step in the process, that this board would go through and make sure it had the benefit of the board review and any inputs. Not that anything's been changed,
I think that's a
but
great
from an
suggestion.
accuracy point of view, make sure it's
Okay.
as robust as it should be, not missing anything.
Okay.
That's fine, but we should do something on that,
Yeah, so
now, at this point.
My suggestion would be the report that Colleen wrote, as far as I'm concerned, is a matter of public record.
Right.
It can be given out to anybody who wants it if it wasn't already. I think it might have already been out there. And that I would suggest that we, as a formal matter, put it on our agenda as needed for next month, and if there's a need to vote on it as our.
can I make a comment?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so that study was done and given to my board.
Right.
And if it's public record, that's fine. I just don't want it to go out there as if it is the proposal from the board back to the town.
It's fine.
Because
Yeah.
it's not. It's only my recommendation as the general
Right.
manager to the Board of Commissioners.
I'm not
So
sure it's public
I
record
just
either.
don't,
It is
I
a
don't
public
think it's
record.
been
It is a
vetted
public record.
by the Board of Commissioners yet in what,
Well,
it's not a
let-
proposal.
Let me make a recommendation, then we just stamp it draft.
Was that?
We stamp it draft. Draft,
Yeah,
D-R-A-F-T.
I just don't,
Right.
just from a value-added point of view, to Colleen's point, I think we want to make progress in this, and we just don't want people reading things that may not be correct or up to date, in which case,
Right.
Well,
I have no objection to releasing it, as far as.
I think it's already been, well, just to clear, to John's point, I think anybody could have this report with stamped as draft. We could have it be on the agenda at our next meeting, and anybody who wants to discuss it and discuss the matter can do that. That would be my suggestion as a process. All right, as far as the report. I think what Colleen did was save ratepayers money by doing something from her expertise and knowledge rather than hiring, a consultancy to do it. I would just take a step back to anybody who's watching this discussion that, to my recollection, RMLD pays one of the largest amounts of any municipal utility to its towns. That's number one. And number two, a payment from the utility to the town entity it's coming from ratepayers. So at a certain point, when you keep raising it, you're just raising electric rates, and that has other knock-on effects. You know, it's still coming out of people's pockets, and to the extent it helps raise rates and it reduces the competitive position of any business that might want to move to Reading, you start to sort of, it's not necessarily helping in the larger picture. And number three, where I would like to get us to as an organization, is that there's assistance between utility and municipal, this cooperation where can be efficiencies found that has the same effect as just writing a check, where we're finding ways to provide or save money mutually between the town entity and the utility. What that could look like could be something that we could start, embarking on now that we have attendance from select board members on a regular basis. It's a conversation that we can integrate into our monthly meetings. We could perhaps have it be an agenda item where it's ongoing discussions. How can we look for this kind of opportunity? I have some ideas. This isn't the time or place to do it. But nevertheless, as a concept, I think that's what we would try to do, is have the town and the utility working together more closely where we can, where it's feasible within our different roles, and not have it just be a discussion about how big is the check.
If I could add to that just a little bit. I mean, part of the reason was because we have alternate uses for the money, right? I mean, it was really investment in capital for the next few years to make up for the fact that we didn't invest for many years prior to basically the general manager coming on. And so it's really to increase and maintain the reliability of the system. And it's not as if we're trying to just lower the entire rates overall. We'd love to do that, but it's got another purpose, and that's really what we're really focused on. So the delay for a couple of years, I mean, we'll certainly talk about that and how to see what that makes sense, and factor in, of course, if there's a reduction in kilowatt hours that's being used for whatever reason by people, by businesses, et cetera. But there's alternate uses for the capital, including the substation that we're talking about building, right, for Wilmington, which is has to be done. I mean, it's not a question of necessity. It's something we absolutely have to do. So when we factor in all those different things, which we'll do during the committee, I'm sure we'll come to some reasonable conclusion.
Just to follow up on that, the freezing is my idea. It's not anybody else's idea in this room. It's my idea at this point. I want to make everybody clear on that. But I do think that, by the November town meeting, we should get this resolved and put this issue to bed. That's my feeling. And I think, it's, to say in the next meeting, we may have to have a meeting before then, if, the subcommittee, don't send the subcommittee off without any direction from this board. I don't want that, So we may have to have a meeting sooner than next month.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Tracy, isn't that on?
If I may.
Yeah.
So 2 points. One, in regards to the report, if it hasn't been made publicly available, perhaps it could be made available to myself and Dan Ensminger, the other liaison to RMLD, for our review, with the understanding that it is still in draft form. The board may have additional changes, but it'll help inform our knowledge before we meet as a subcommittee. And then to Mr. Talbot's point regarding collaborating with the town, I, as one member of the select board, would very much look forward to seeing how we can partner with RMLD on initiatives that would be beneficial to both the town and RMLD. And perhaps as the payment discussion winds down towards approaching town meeting, we can reform a subcommittee to discuss those kinds of endeavors.
Mr. Chair. The only thing I'd add, I don't disagree with any of that. I think not during this meeting necessarily, but I think we should set some particular, the town meeting, I don't know if the dates have been set, but it's probably in 6 weeks, which is not a lot of time, since we know how hard it is to get everybody's schedules, both here and on the other side, organized. So I would recommend, and I also fully agree with what Phil said, we should, we don't want this like a ping pong ball where we send it over and then, the committee, subcommittee comes up with a recommendation and CAB and the full board has problems. So let's try to schedule the right sequence of meetings that have to happen. Let's start with the end in mind. We've got to present because, we don't want to give the chair who's ever presenting the night before the meeting 11th hour discussion, and the CAB obviously needs to be involved and informed. So I think we just need to put some milestone meeting dates. And we had already discussed, I know, having a board meeting. I don't know if we ever memorialized it to an actual date, but I think we just need to get those dates hardwired.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure.
Yep.
Well, do you want to do it now? Do you want to wait till the end of the meeting, or?
Well, I think the first thing that needs to be set up is probably the subcommittee. I think that's the first domino that's got to fall. Getting the subcommittee together.
Yeah, and it's still active, so why don't we have this be the meeting where we wrap it up? And in my opinion, committees aren't always the way to do things, so we should just do them with full boards as a matter of philosophy. So,
So what are you saying?
I'm saying have one more and wrap it up, and then it's up to the boards to move whatever it is forward.
Right, but what are we moving forward, though? This board's got to tell me what we're going to move forward.
Well, the results of the subcommittee, I think, is what.
Right.
We want to hear from the subcommittee, which has existed for some time. Have it bring forward whatever it's going to bring forward. It exists.
Yeah.
So
I think it's fair.
let's get it
Okay.
done, and then we'll.
So why don't we work
It'll
with
die.
Tracy, the members of the subcommittee,
subcommittee.
work with Tracy to find a day soon that we could reconstitute the.
Like in the next 2 weeks, if we
Yeah,
can do it.
exactly, right. And try to put this to
Right.
bed.
And then it's, because when there's a subcommittee, then the full board isn't necessarily as engaged on it as it should be. And I think if we had just had it be the full boards, this would have been not blasted as long as it has.
Yeah, but again, just so we don't waste effort, I think Phil makes an important point. So we don't want to have the subcommittee discuss it, talk about Phil's ideas, and then it comes back here and there's a 180-degree
Right. Yeah,
difference. So
exactly.
it seems to me this board should provide some direction to Phil to bring this subcommittee, especially where it's been so long, and that's highly recommended, not as a repeat of everything, but we need a very short summary of where we are, because I know, Vanessa, I know you were part of the stuff, but if I was, in the audience or someone else, I think people need to understand, what we're talking about in terms of why this is an issue, what we've done. It doesn't have to be a 2-hour discussion. But.
And that's one thing I think the subcommittee could do is settle on some alternatives, present them to the full board, and let the board vote on the alternative that is
Certainly do that,
they feel
yeah.
appropriate.
Okay. Yeah.
We could have 2 or 3.
Right.
One is freezing it, one is potentially reducing it. Third one could be increasing it. Who knows? I mean, we need to, I think, kick it around in the subcommittee first,
Okay.
and then bring whatever proposals.
But again, the whole point is let's get moving on
Yeah,
this.
yeah. I
Let's
agree.
get moving. That's why I brought
It
this
was
up.
summertime, right?
So a
Well,
rather.
it's a-
Throw out my idea.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so a rather innocuous report of the subcommittee item on the agenda has become a very complicated one.
Well, I knew it would be.
Yeah, so
I knew it would be.
So at this point, we're scheduling a subcommittee meeting, correct? And the subcommittee will
Yes.
bring forth a range of options, and then the
Right.
full board will consider them and take some kind of action incorporating your report, the subcommittee's input, and hopefully the idea that it's more than just what's the dollar figure, but other means of
Okay.
enhancing that relationship and value.
Just a reminder, the subcommittee is myself, Mr. Stempak, it's Mr. Enzinger,
And
and
myself.
Vanessa, and then Mr. Hooper, George.
Okay.
Okay? Just
All right,
remember
so-
the 5 members.
Okay.
Good.
I think Mr. Cohen is also on there, Neil Cohen, the Reading representative. He's also on there. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Sorry. Okay. So now we're on to the general manager's report. Sorry?
I need to find a tissue.
Okay. I will fill the empty space with a little more discussion on collaboration, if I may. We were discussing site planning issues where when new developments are proposed, there can be automatic placement of car charging stations as a matter of a routine. That would enhance, I think, local infrastructure, the consumption of electricity, advance cleaner transportation, and provide more revenue to RMLD, which then helps the larger cause.
Just to expand on that.
Hang on, let me-
I've thought about our idea of the car charging station. There is now, I live in the area of the Reading Depot.
Yeah.
There is now a lot of development that's going on in that
Correct.
area. I still think the idea of potentially putting some sort of charging station down in the depot area,
Completely agree.
because it's very much residential now. There's at least 2 new buildings that I'm aware of that are going up in that area.
So, yeah,
And I think it'd be
so both within
and the
town
there's
property-
town-owned land down there too, so
Right,
I
so-
think it'd be an excellent idea.
within town-owned land, if the town is ever redeveloping a street, a parking lot, that this is something that should be thought about and incorporated into whatever the relevant ordinances are, or site planning review processes, and with new developments. And then, right now, as an electric car owner, we've got one here in the RMLD parking lot, and I think that's it. Correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have any other public car charging in the town of Reading at the moment. So, yet we have all this activity going on. So right there is something we can do today to move forward with something in our mutual interests, enhance infrastructure, enhance clean transportation, and enhance revenue to RMLD in the form of increased sales from the chargers. So, that's the kind of thing that's one of what could be many. And we have another comment from Ms. Alvarado on this point. So. Well, it's fine. It's fine.
While she's on the way up,
but to move something like this forward, when we had a year and a half of running around in circles on this payment question, we could be moving 6 things like this forward, and that's where I'd like us to get to.
If I can make a comment as well, and
Yeah.
I'm hoping that when we consider locations, it's not just about Reading. I mean, we've got 2 major interstates that crisscross
Right.
through Reading, much
Absolutely.
to my chagrin because it's noisy, right? But 95 and 93 for easy on, easy off access, and having the positions of them available to everybody in the United States on whatever database they're
Right.
using. Because Tesla does this all the time. Right? They have Tesla stations identified. But so it's not just dependent upon people in Reading buying electric cars. Anybody on these interstates who want to charge up
Right.
can pull off easy, get back on easy, just like a regular gas station.
Causeway Street.
Okay.
Causeway Street.
Just a thought,
Recognizing again Ms. Alvarado. who
Yeah, go
has-
ahead.
All right.
2 comments. One, perhaps if I might suggest, perhaps in a location where there's a restaurant or shopping to be had, so
Absolutely.
people have something
Great.
to do while they
Great.
charge. And the second is CPDC is now in the process of reviewing their guidelines for developments. This is specifically targeted towards the 40R district, which focuses on downtown. So as they're undergoing that process now, perhaps it might be a good time for RMLD to collaborate,
Sure.
reach out to CPDC and see if that's something that they can
And
incorporate.
when is the next meeting? Is it
Can I-
Tuesdays? Yeah.
Actually, I forwarded the flyer for October 17th, which the town is discussing parking lots.
Right.
And also economic development, of which we will go and we will listen.
Yep.
And then I've also reached out to the town manager to have a conversation with him, to discuss the possibility of putting in charging stations in public parking lots, and even some potential language that would go into planning board language, where maybe, and this would be all 4
Yep.
towns, future buildings are built maybe with the ability to encompass solar on the roof in the future, and that any, commercial buildings would maybe have a charger, and that would go into planning board thing. But Bob and I are gonna meet towards the end of October, after this October 17th meeting on economic development. So, but I sent everyone the flyer. Everybody's welcome to go.
I should have mentioned that earlier. Thank you, Colleen. That's great. So when is it Tuesday, I think, the CPDC meeting?
Tuesday.
They just had one this week,
I'll check, but
so I'd have
are
to
they
check.
bringing an article forward for town meeting to revise the 40R?
Because it's not, it wouldn't affect the bylaws, no.
Okay.
And they're guidelines.
Got it.
But they are talking about parking and usage, effect on surrounding neighborhoods. A lot of it is visual.
Yep.
But this might be a nice area to start incorporating that concept.
Great.
Vanessa, if I could ask just a unrelated question. I mean, you're attending our meeting here, which is great. I mean, it really, I think, helps get the selectmen and us more on the same kind of page. Would you recommend that we attend certain meetings of the selectmen in a reporting capacity or just a discussion capacity? Because I know it's been kind of one-sided right now. You've come to us. I'm just asking the question. I don't know. Sitting through all of your meeting probably isn't obviously as productive, just like you're sitting here through all of ours isn't. So, and everybody's got the chance to get up and leave. But if there are specific maybe pieces once a month or something where we could report back to the overall selectmen that these are the things that we're working on. You may or may not have seen it, and just maybe a 10-minute, 5-minute slot for one of us to chat to those.
I think that's a great idea. I could present it to the select board chair. I know that he is making efforts to bring in various boards and committees for just that reason, because it gives a broader audience of what's happening. I have been providing, when I attend these meetings, updates during the liaison assignments. I actually just announced the RMLD plug and drive event that you had this weekend. But it would be great, I think, to hear from the commissioners.
Okay, great.
So I'll present that to our chair. That's not.
Thank you.
Very
All right. Thank you.
Let's move on.
Yep. Okay, thank you. So now we can move to your report, Colleen, on the first item, review of the general manager. I guess this is just the action item. This is not a report from you, or is it a report from you?
Wasn't there a committee that worked on this?
Want me to read this?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. We're just going to go right to the motion.
Yeah.
Right, go right to the motion.
Okay.
Move that the board approve the General Manager Committee's recommendation that effective July 1st, 2018, Ms. O'Brien receive a salary increase of 4.5% in addition to a $6,000 bonus paid out as Ms. O'Brien chooses as ICMA, cash, or a combination of the two.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Do you want to discuss the evaluation process at all, John, or just summarize?
It's very similar to the way we've done it in years past, where we use comparables from similarly sized organizations, look at their growth posture, look at the benefit structures that other general managers have seen, and then balance that with the report back from Ms. O'Brien in terms of what her accomplishments were for the year, and I think those were very favorably received. There have been significant number, far too many for us to elaborate here, but obviously going on the right track in terms of making this a very modern, forward-looking organization. So I think the entire board was very impressed with that, and hence the recommendation.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind, Colleen, if you want to just summarize, take this opportunity to summarize some of your achievements. You don't have to, but it was a great year, and you did a wonderful job, and we all thank you, and I think you've done a great job for the community. So if you don't have to take this chance to toot your horn, but there were a lot of great achievements at RMLD this year.
Well, I appreciate. Obviously, we accomplished a lot.
Yep.
The entire organization, and as John said, we are very forward-looking now. The utility technology is changing, the environment's changing, the landscape of utility going forward is changing, and we're on the right track. And we're back to being a leader, and we want to be a spokesperson for moving forward for all of the municipals in the state, because we are the big sister and the big brother, and that is important. Too many accomplishments, lots of money saved, and I just enjoy being a public servant, and will continue to give you 150%.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
would just like to say, I mean, the process, as John said, also includes each board member provides a very detailed performance review in about 7 categories, including the financial area, and we'd had, as I think we reported last meeting, there was no audit findings. We have safety pieces, organizational study that was brought in a few years ago, and being in the HR world, Colleen has done a great job with managing succession planning, employee development here, training plans, which is very difficult. And as I like to say, still run the railroad. So fabulous, having been on the board a few years. Was a tremendous performance year, and I think this is reflected in her performance review.
Yeah, and I kind of feel the same way. I think everybody's kind of said everything, and I think, Colleen, you've done a great job over the last year, bringing, getting the department where it is today, and not to, but we got to keep going. Yes.
With that, people probably have noticed a lot of peak, sort of alerts to try to get people to conserve energy. This is just one of the many efforts at RMLD to communicate the need to reduce energy consumption at peak times in the hot summer days. And I'm wondering, do we know what we knocked down on the 29th of August, which I believe was the peak? Do we know how much we're
still analyzing.
Okay. So, but I think you have now 4 megawatts of demand reduction on the industrial side, and there's a major effort. We have a generator that's knocking back the peak, and a battery, I think a state-leading battery project that's in development that we've received a grant for. When that goes in, it means we're going to have another, is that 5 megawatts of, this is a giant lithium-ion battery that will take energy during whatever the cheapest time is overnight and release it during the peak. This is an effort to both save costs and also make the electricity supply more sustainable, in the sense that we're leveling out consumption over the course of the day. When you do that, it means you have less reliance on these very polluting oil and certain kinds of gas peaking plants that only kick on those hot afternoons a few times a year. The less we use those, the more we're helping on the emissions front, and we're helping on our costs. So these are big deals that we're doing, and they're hard to see. So it's worth mentioning, these are some great engineering feats within RMLD that I just want to personally call out. So thank you, Colleen, for all of this. You're a great engineer, and thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Colleen.
This just segues also. I just wanted to make a comment on the next. Did we vote?
We don't have to vote.
Yes,
We have to
sorry.
vote on that,
So
yeah.
with that, let's vote. We have a motion and a second, and all in favor. We have 4-0 with Dave voting in spirit, but we have to technically say he's absent. I just want to make a quick comment about the next item. So one of the things Colleen's been doing is very assiduously going through our policies and updating them and having a legal review. This particular one is one that is of extremely high importance for RMLD, in that it sets out what are our goals for whatever you want to call it, sustainable energy, renewable energy, having a sort of a cleaner operation. It's of a different kind of magnitude of a policy, and we've had one quick round with this, and we've had some discussion on it, and I think that I would like to just sort of hold off on voting on this version for a couple of reasons. I think that it's called a sustainable energy policy, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's really about procurement of energy, right? This particular scope of this policy is about what kind of energy are we buying, correct? That's what it's about. That's what it covers.
The policy was put into place to say that, and I clarified it.
Yep.
It directs the general manager to procure sustainable energy that can be made from renewable, whether you retire or sell the RECs.
Correct.
So.
But it only covers procurement, correct? Like, it's about what we're buying. It's not about other types of operational.
It's about what's in your portfolio.
It's the energy portfolio. Okay. So where I'm going with this, just to finish my little spiel here, is that, first of all, it's more of an energy procurement policy, and we should be clearer about what these different buckets are. Colleen just alluded to the things for which we sell these renewable energy credits, or what we don't. We're hearing that, in fact, because we sell them, we actually have a zero renewable energy from a technical point of view, from how it's defined by the state. We have zero. But we are saying we have 17% that's sustainable. I just think some of these things need to be explained and unpacked, what they mean. What do these terms actually mean in a clearer way within the text here? Now, that's the kind of the negative comment from me. The positive comment is that if we're going to have a sustainability policy, we should be properly talking about some of the great things we are doing, like the battery and the generation and other things that we're doing that aren't about energy procurement, that speak to how what our goals are to be a more sustainable operation. And that would point to, hey, well, we've achieved a battery, we've achieved a generator, and those wouldn't show up in this policy because it's only about what energy you're buying. So I think we probably need two policies. One is the energy procurement, and within that, we want to be clear about, well, because we have a REC policy, we actually can only say we don't have any renewable energy in our portfolio, but we do cite a lot of renewable energy and then sell the renewable energy credits. So these are complicated things, but I think as a board, we need to be very clear about what we're doing here. There's stuff that's cited, but we sell the RECs. That's great. But we can't, then there's stuff that's, we can still call it renewable because we don't sell the RECs. But this word sustainable is murky because it's a way to say that we don't have, I don't know if I'm losing.
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
Yeah.
I'd like to recommend that we would table this
Yep.
motion until we've had a chance to discuss it in more detail in terms of what the board would like to see from a definitional point of view. And I think that's really what it's all about. It's not not the intent to change it, but to make sure that it's clarified in a way that the public understands and we understand, so that we don't get into REC versus non-REC versus renewable versus sustainable issues when we predefine exactly what we mean. And that's really, and I think there's some issue about understanding those. So I'm not quite sure how to accomplish that unless we have like a separate meeting. Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, so that was my point. So I think our policy review change has served us well in policies where there were just, shall I say, minor edits or things that needed to be tweaked. What we're suggesting here, I think, may call for at least a temporary revisit of the policy committee, because otherwise it's not appropriate to try to wordsmith sustainability policy.
So Mr. Chairman, can I ask for clarification here? I'm reading the motion. The motion talks about several different policies here.
Well, they're crossed out here, which I guess you're saying they're not ready for. Okay.
I changed. Come on.
You gotta get on the right page there, Phil.
Rather than move on and have them not be ready.
Right.
and have them-
Come on. I did my homework. Come on.
It's so right. So the only one that's actually on the agenda is this one that I've been talking about. And I'd actually just like to, I mean, we're public power. I would personally like to hear from the public about what they want in their energy mix. And, you know,
So,
and that's a philosophical thing. And I would love to have input, and that at our next meeting, we're hearing from the public about what they want.
so Mr. Chairman, in the fact that Mr. Hennessy's not here, maybe we should just go on to the next item, item 9.
That's fine. But so we'll.
Okay.
Yep. That's right. That's what I'm saying.
And have a fuller discussion with Mr. Hennessy also being here.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I hope that was clear. Maybe it wasn't.
Again, I think Phil interrupted me, but I would just suggest, you know, that it become Groundhog Day if we keep, nothing's going to happen with this without some kind of a subcommittee or something. So maybe that's not needed now, but this kind of policy, the kind of suggestions you're making, I agree with Dave. It's just there's no mechanism for that to happen.
All right, here's what I would suggest be a mechanism. At our October meeting, we have an agenda item where it's open for public discussion and for us to discuss and look at what possible language could be. That's my suggestion, that we not have a committee that does it. We do it at our full board meeting.
For that to happen.
Speaking from one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, for
Anyone
that to
that's a town
happen,
me-
someone
anyone-
has to do some background work
Right.
to
John,
bring the
you're a
agenda
town
together.
meeting. You can read something that's been presented, but we're talking about creating something literally, so
Okay.
I don't think it's sufficient effective, and I think it really will take more time. I think you're looking at a 4-hour board meeting just to discuss a policy, just
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Could I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman? Perhaps we could have a separate meeting.
Yep.
With some select group of us and Colleen and anyone else who's appropriate to get the definitions correct and get the intent right and get it worded on perhaps one page. Then we could certainly circulate that as part of the agenda piece to all the board members, and invite the public to discuss
Okay.
as well.
I agree.
And
This
that'd
is
be
a full
fine.
board meeting, so why don't we schedule a full board meeting for a week before the October meeting to discuss what we want to do on this, and we can have that meeting be.
I'm not sure it would take a full board meeting to do that.
Okay.
I think we could do it during the regular board meeting, as long as we've got very good definitions and we've solicited public opinion.
Okay.
Do you think? Do you,
That's fine. I think we can also call a meeting. We don't have to decide and schedule a meeting right now. We can do this also at the staff level. We can figure out what the
Okay.
dates would be and then post it properly. So
It's just a
point
definitional
taken.
thing. Yeah.
Point taken. Yeah.
Can I make one final comment?
Yep.
So, last meeting, we spent an hour, 45 minutes talking about sort of line item changes to policies.
Yep.
We're talking about rewriting. Someone has to rewrite the policy, so whether that's done by a committee or whatever you want to put a name to it, something, trying to do it in a full board, I just would say is, I'm happy to sit in
then
on it, but I think
could
it would be
we-
very task.
Could we get comparable policies from other light plants that have been adopted by their boards of commissioners or that are enshrined in their plans?
All right, can I just ask a question? Okay. This particular policy is a sustainability policy, and the correction that was made was to not let the public think that sustainable meant renewable. So it was specifically defined in
Right.
accordance with the law, and so we are saying in here that we're meeting certain percentages that the board wanted us to meet on sustainable, meaning that it's produced by renewable, either we retire or we don't retire the RECs. Or they might be part of the financial calculation that's done on solar where the vendor is collecting the REC, okay? So this is actually accurate. What I'm hearing is you would rather have a policy where we say, okay, we would like to meet true renewable by a certain date. And we would like to meet sustainable by a certain date. Or we would like to have batteries and this other technology, and we want to have that much in our portfolio.
Possibly, yeah.
That's a very broad topic.
Well-
And when you say you want to include public input, where we're looking into doing a customer survey, you know, that's where you get that type of data, would have time to ask the other organizations, of which we just talked about. Energy New England is trying to get together, what does everyone else do?
Yep.
Because not everyone else has
So
a renewable
some-
or sustainable
You're making great
policy.
points. So a couple things. One key question that we should solicit input on and then state in our policy is, are we in line with the state's goals of 80% renewable by 2050 or not? So is that something that the board and the department is wanting to do, and is that what the board is directing the department to do, yes or no? And if the answer is no, why are we not doing it? Are we saying it's going to be too costly or whatever? So we've never said whether we want to be in line with state policy. So that's one basic thing to establish. You know, is that our policy or not? And then secondly, if we're going to make these definitions, well, you know, earlier this week you mentioned in an informational email that we actually have zero renewable energy, but that's not stated anywhere in the policy. It's just using these words to kind of, with all due respect, to kind of avoid saying that. I think we need to be clear about what our mix is and how we define these things, and it's not clear right now. So you read this and the reader doesn't understand that, okay, well, we took these actions, so we can't really take credit for what we're taking credit for, but we're calling it sustainable to do that. So it's like I said last meeting, it feels a little murky to me, and it could be clearer. And I think it also could be clearer in our favor in terms of showing things that we do that are good and are unusual, like batteries and generation, that are very good for the system and good for sustainability and good for carbon emissions. But this doesn't address those in any way, shape, or form. So I think, why adopt something that's incomplete and unclear on these things when we can take the time to adopt something that's clear and gets into these things?
I agree. It's just a completely different animal, that's all.
No, not
And-
really.
And it's.
It's
well,
one that it's this animal, but that things are clearly explained and it's complete, and it states whether we're in line with state goals or not. I mean, this just kind of is.
Well,
That's all.
if we're going to look at state goals, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Jane, have not even been established yet. We're in the process of,
Yep.
because we're still locally controlled and we're not mandated by the state.
We're not
okay?
mandated, but we're governed by elected representatives of the public, and the elected representatives as charged by the public, can set a policy. So what is the policy?
Correct. But I just think when we write a policy that way, in order to be transparent,
Right.
okay, we can set up models of what it would look like, and we can also project out what that cost is going to be.
Absolutely.
Because that's going to be really, that's
That's
going
great.
to take a little bit of time, and not going to be able to do that in any policy
Okay,
or.
so maybe there needs to be
committee.
a reporting requirement in here that periodically RMLD shall report what its, whatever, emitting, not emitting, renewable, not renewable is, and that it's posted on the website. You can't find that on our website right now. So there's a lot to this. So that's why I'm saying, just trying to table it, but now we're getting into some of these things that's why I don't think this is ready for prime time, because it's.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy just to table it until we can get better definition amongst ourselves in terms of what we need.
And I think we decided we're going to have a meeting to get into some of these things, hopefully get some public input, and then maybe by October we can have a policy that we can adopt, or maybe it doesn't happen by October, and that's okay. I mean, let's do it when we're ready to do it.
Yeah, we've got till 2050.
Yeah.
Is it, I don't remember, is this a new policy, or it
No,
says
this is an
revision, but
existing policy.
Existing policy.
And the only thing that was clarified was the definition. What we didn't, we had talked at the last meeting as to whether or not you wanted me to change it into a renewable goal. And my understanding was you just wanted the definition clarified for now, because renewable goals, in aligning with the state, in aligning with everything that the RMLD is doing out there on this topic, is going to take some time.
Yeah, but I think it's worth doing. It's
Yes,
very
I agree.
fundamental to, major questions, so.
Can we move on?
Yes,
Yeah, we
please,
move
let's
on.
do it.
Yes.
So we'll move on. All right, thank you. Now we're doing agenda item number 9, Jane Parenteau's report. Thank you.
Before we start with this, I just have a couple community relations event, if that's okay with the board. On Sunday, September 16th, the RMLD held a ride and drive event. We estimated that we had about between 75 to 100 customers that participated.
Good.
We had over 35 test drives. We had dealers from Cornerstone Mitsubishi in Wilmington, Honda Gallery in Reading, Smart of Linfield, and Quirk Chevrolet of Braintree. We also had showcase vehicles where actual customers came with their vehicles, and they were able to talk to prospective EV purchasers about the benefits of EVs that they had. And for that, we had a Tesla Model 3, a Tesla Model X, the Chrysler Pacifica, which is a plug-in hybrid, the Chevy Bolt, the Honda Clarity, and the Nissan Leaf. We partnered with Wakefield and Danvers for this event, and overall it was great success, and members of IRD and customer service in my group did a really nice job for that. Additionally, there will be a tech talk on smart homes held at the Reading Public Library that the RMLD will be participating in, and that's on September 27th at 7 p.m. Just a reminder that Public Power Week open house for RMLD will be here on October 11th, and the time frames will be from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Wilmington is holding an open house for new and existing residents on October 15th at 6 o'clock at the Wilmington Library. And then we're beginning to distribute the elementary student art contest materials to the fourth grade participants in our service territory. This year, awards will be taking place in February rather than January, just to give the schools more time to do the artwork and for us to collect it and judge it. And that the historical calendar is on the works, and we're working on that as well. So that concludes the community relations update.
Jane, a couple of questions. How many on the new electric vehicles that people can get the rebate? How many are we up to now?
Yes, we've actually done 31. We've actually achieved the goal. We set a goal of 31. We were hoping it would be approximately 6 per month.
Yeah.
And it's about equal to with the battery electric and the plug-in hybrids. So I'll be happy to present an update for that next month, just
Okay.
to tell you the different models. And we're actually starting to analyze the residential load on those to see what the increase is for the off-peak charging.
Yeah, the other question I had, I saw on the road the other day that there's actually an electric vehicle license plate.
There is, yeah. You
What
get
is
it's kind of like a vanity plate where you don't have to get it for an electric vehicle, but if you do have an electric vehicle, you can get that plate.
Are the proceeds going any particular place?
I'm not familiar with that,
Yeah.
Bill, but I can also look into that to just get a little more
Yeah, okay.
information.
Yeah. Would hope they go back into renewable energy, I would hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So this is the September board meeting for purchase power, and we'll be covering June and July. So the first slide looks at our energy costs and our cost per kilowatt hour, and we look back 3 years from fiscal year 2016 to 2018. And as you can see, our energy costs went from $32.4 million in fiscal year 16 down to $31.5 in fiscal year 17. And the estimate for this year's year-end closing is at $30.1 million. So gas prices are an all-time low. We've done a good job procuring power. In addition to that, sales are going down, which I'll show you in some additional slides here. But the average cost has gone from a little over 4.5 all the way down to 4.45. So that's a direct pass-through through our customers, and so they're receiving those costs directly. The next slide looks at transmission costs. And as you can see, on average, transmission is going up about a little over 5% each year. In fiscal year 16, we were at $12.3 million. We had a 5.6 increase in fiscal year 17 to $13 million. And in fiscal year 18, and it was another 5.1 increase to $13.7 million. Those costs are regional network service primarily, over 90%. Transmission is socialized throughout New England. And again, a lot of our programs that we design are designed to reduce our peak demand, which is how we get charged for this. So we're trying to correlate our retail programs with our wholesale power supply costs. The next slide looks at capacity costs for fiscal year 16. We were at $18.7 million. In fiscal year 17, we had a 6.9% increase, just under $20 million. And this last fiscal year was the peak of capacity. That was the result of footprint power coming online. That took place for the old Salem Harbor. And those costs were at 25.4 or 27% increase. Those costs are seen on our customers' bill through the PPCT, which is Purchase Power Capacity and Transmission. So again, the RMLD makes no revenue on that. It's a complete pass-through what our costs are. We pass through. And then our Shred the Peak program and our DG unit, as David mentioned earlier, is all programmed to try to minimize that capacity costs. The next few slides looks at our kilowatt hour sales by class. And as we've spoken in the past, we have a declining trend here. So the first slide is at residential kilowatt hour sales. We had a little peak in 2015. But if you just do a trend line there, they're going down on average about 1% per year. It's very similar in the industrial kilowatt hour slide. That one's a little more consistent. Again, a little peak in 15, but there's steady decreases in 16, 17, and 18. The next slide looks at municipal buildings and public schools. And again, the same type of format here, trending downward. This is probably a little steeper than the other ones. I know a lot of the schools have been working on efficiency programs. We've done the LED lighting upgrade, so that's increased to, that's provided some decrease in sales because of efficiencies. And then the last slide looks at just the total kilowatt hour sales that the department is looking at. And then the trend line is similar to the per class slides. And that would complete my report if there's any questions.
I'm curious what it takes to determine what our peak reduction was on the 29th. What is involved with knowing what we achieved?
It's data analytics in terms of we kind of look at different scenarios. We had sent out a little report in July And one of the caveats that we had in the July report is there's a lot of things that contribute to the peak.
Right.
And a good example of that, the data had indicated that we had about a 5% reduction in overall peak if we just looked at the numbers
Right.
from last year to this year. However, when you start diving into the data, one of the major components that stood out on that particular day was one of our largest customers was on shutdown that week.
Lucky for us.
So again,
Yeah.
that, if you just look at the data,
Right.
we say, oh, our Shred the Peak's doing a great job. We've had a 5% decrease, but then when you start diving in and analyzing the data, you have to look at all aspects of it. So it's a little complicated. It takes a little while, but we'll do our best in terms of trying to make that determination. We have a list of the customers that are actually participating, because we had 2,000 customers sign up for our Shred the Peak. So we'll look specifically at those to see if we can determine some trends, and try to get you some information in the next couple meetings.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you.
Jane, one quick thing. Is it is it possible for like the CAB meetings to separate like the industrial kilowatts by town so that each member could see what their town is contributing and or how the sales have changed for those?
Yep, absolutely. We'd
Cool.
be able to do that. Yep, no problem.
Good idea. Hamid. You're up. Yeah, of course.
Nothing to approve, right?
No, we still got more. Turn the page over.
Okay, I'm giving you the report for the June, end of June, basically June of 2018. The first slide is giving you the expenditures, what we spent up to June in capital improvement projects. As you could see on the left, the description, the far right shows the remaining balance. In some areas, we saved money, really. In some areas, we didn't spend the money as we projected, like New Wilmington substation, and that's the one that is still in negotiations with National Grid. So I was supposed to get the PNS today. But as you know, they are in strike, the gas side.
Yeah.
So everything is being kind of pushed off a little bit. The LED street lightings, we saved like about $437,000 through competitive bidding, and also the price of the street lights, they came down as, every year they continued coming down. The Station 3 reactors, $245,000 that we saved, and that's through competitive bidding, which was really great. The next slide is showing you the routine capital constructions with all the categories, the pole settings, overhead underground projects, and pole damage, hazmat, storm troubles, and new subdivisions, everything. So we spent in the month of June $68,523. That brings the total year to date to $1,360,110. The next slide shows the spending for facilities, integrated resources, and information technology, which, we had a little bit balance. We saved some money in some areas, and facilities, we ended up spending a little bit more. Basically for the capital expenditures for all divisions through the month of June, we spent $687,683. That would bring the year-to-date to $6,513,565. What was budgeted, so we had actually the remaining balance of $1,171,956, which $650,000 of that was for the land, and $245,000, as I mentioned, we saved on reactors, and $437,000 for street lights that we saved on
So those are savings from purchases?
Those are some savings, and some of that, as you see that we run over. It's not really running over. These are the ones that the equipment they came in after the June from previous fiscal year. And
okay.
our policy is that unless if we have them and receive them in stock, we don't pay them. The big ticket item for that was $650,000 for generator. because the contractor, they started late and they delivered the project, they delivered the project right around the right time, but the testing and final acceptance wasn't done until past. So that's what the explanation for that would be. Any questions on those? Yes, sir.
So I don't know if you're at that stage, so we're transitioning to calendar fiscal year.
Right.
So does that mean as we go down to the end of the year, the reporting, we're not going to be having a July 1 to June 30th budgeting, right?
No.
So are we going to have a 6-month budget for the rest of this year, July to December?
Actually, go ahead.
So the budget was approved for FY19, so we're just going to compare the budget as we spend money as it would have been. We're just going to compare per month what it would have been.
Okay.
Come up to the microphone.
Same way we always did.
Yeah.
But then, of course, at 12/31, the FY19 budget stops. And we will be presenting a new budget in October and November for calendar year 19.
Okay, so you're still measuring progress to budget, but in January 1,
It's a brand new budget.
yeah, which will incorporate, I guess, CapEx
Yes,
for the,
yes.
okay, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Good.
No,
All
no,
right.
just to shout out, again, the engineering and the amount of work that you were doing and Colleen is doing is extraordinary. And
Thank
we
you.
know there's a tremendous amount that's being done to make the system better. This is the nuts and bolts of what keeps the lights on, and it's hard to see it if you're the public, but there's an incredible amount going on at RMLD, and we're all thankful to you and to you, Colleen, for that.
Thank you. We've got a great
I
team.
think it is seen in terms of what we don't experience, where we
Right.
see other towns around us that have had some real tragedies lately. And
Yeah,
Great work.
exactly. And we've had projects that was nothing, and now there's a gas generator, there's a battery project, you have a very complicated substation project that you're figuring out again from scratch. And I mean, this isn't just kind of pushing things down the road. This is like fundamentally engineering the system in great new ways. And so just thank you from all of us.
You're welcome. Well, we got a great team. I mean, it's a team effort. They're all working well together. And our goal is to save money for the public, and we are proud of what we're doing.
Yep.
So, thank you for that. The next one is the routine maintenance, basically, in the transformer replacement program. We're making progress on those. You see the percentages for pad mount and overhead transformers. The pole inspections, we're doing great. Again, the contractors are in town for next round, for next 10%, to test the 750 poles again this time around. And I'm glad to announce that, the failure rate, it keeps going down. The first year, if you recall, we had like about 33% failed. And now we're down to 5 to 10%. That well, what I mean by fail, that doesn't mean the pole is going to fall today, because if we catch something that needs immediate condemned, we need immediate attention, it's taken care of right away. The failing meaning that some standards, that the testing standards that say that okay, this pole has had it, so you better schedule to replace that. That's what I mean by that. So that's going very well. The inspection of the feeders, these are all the feeders that we're inspecting, and we haven't found any problems on those. You see the list. There's quite a lot. The manhole inspection program, that's going very well. We still keep inspecting them and making improvements in the URDs, the underground rural developments, the projects, and also the existing underground subdivisions that they need maintenance. Porcelain cutout replacements, we are making progress on those as we are making improvements throughout all these towns. They're being replaced. There are only a small percentage left that that should be taken care of as we're making all of these improvements in these areas. The tree trimming going extremely well. The substation maintenance, that infrared scan that we do monthly, it's really paying off. I mean, it's amazing how much money we've saved and how much we could do the preventative maintenance, as opposed to the failures that could happen if you don't do this program. The underground subdivision upgrade, this is a great project. The crews, they're taking great pride in doing those, and we're trying to catch up with it. These are the old subdivisions that they need. Everything needs to be uprooted. I mean, you can't just fix that and not go to the next one over, because it's just a matter of time before it fails. So as we get into these projects, right now, doing it, a number of times going back and forth, which is very costly operations, we just take care of from A to Z and be done with it. And we have made quite progress on those. We got a few more subdivisions that, we need, they are work in progress, and these are the ones that you see in all over the North Reading and Wilmington and Linfield. So you have the list, you see them in progress. So we're making really good headway on these, and we're still not out of the woods yet, because they're like about 60, 70 subdivisions. But what we've done, we've prioritized them based on the age and severity of the project. I mean the maintenance that they need. So we have prioritized them, and we are replacing them and taking care of those. The poles, as you see, the ownership, we got approximately 16,000 poles. The ownership is 50-50 with Verizon. The custodial, that shows that, the only custodials for us, RMLD, is half in Reading and entire North Reading. The other areas is done by Verizon, which actually they've been catching up with the maintenance, which I'm glad to see that, they're setting up poles. And the response is much better than what it used to be, but not still at the rate that we'd like to. They can't keep up with us, with all the poles that we are setting and, do the transfers. But we see some improvements. I hope that continues.
It's too bad they can't subcontract that to you.
Yeah, all right, that's right. We could, we get to those.
Why not?
We get to those. We've removed, you're going to see that on the report over here. Our crews, they have taken care of a ton of poles, really. And these are all in the critical areas and the areas that they needed to be done or should have been done like 10 years ago, 15 years ago probably. But we catching up, like what I said, it's work in progress. We're still not out of the woods yet, but we are much in better shape today than we were, 4 or 5 years ago. Yep. In Linfield, you see that RMLD has 19 transfers to do. In North Reading, we have 9 transfers and 44 pole bots that need to be removed. In town of Reading, we got 27 transfers to do, 18 pole bots to remove, and in Wilmington, we got 28 transfers and 4 pole bots that needs to be removed. So these numbers, they keep going up, down, depending as we installing more poles and as we do the transfer. So obviously they go down and removing the pole bots. So I want to thank our residents for all 4 towns for being patient with us. We don't like those double poles, but please be patient, as this is the important part of the reliability of our system. So that's why the reliability is getting better and better, because we're spending money to upgrade the system, and obviously, you see the results. The next slide, I think, is showing how well we are doing in reliability. It shows the reliability indices for SAIDI, KD, and SAFE. They're all well below regional and national reported averages. So these numbers are improving, getting better, and that's what we like to see. That means reliability-wise we are strong. However, we still need to keep up with the maintenance for these numbers to get better and better. So the next page, it shows the causes of outages as of June 2018, and you could see that across all categories compared to 5 years average, we are making progress. That means they're going down. Although lately we've had few tree incidents that it's just in the nature of the game. I mean, there's some trees with shallow roots that they're healthy, they're next to the line or across the street, and if something the wind blows, and could bring them down, and that we don't have any controls over, but we get to them as with the tree trimming program. They're being identified, and we're watching them, and if they're approaching the lines, we trim them as we mentioned, and as the policy mentions, like 8-inch cut that we do, so they don't approach the lines. But that program is going very well too. So that concludes my meeting for tonight, my report for tonight.
Are you going to comment on the TV program of the squirrels or the?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, as you've noticed, I mean, number of outages that they've had, they've been related to the squirrel. We got a squirrel guards, and not probably in the entire system, but I would say majority of the transformers, they got them. It's hard to catch up on those. However, the squirrels are getting smarter these days. So they know
Darwinian, huh?
they know how to get in and how to work their way into making the fault. I mean, we are not the only one. I mean, actually, we're doing better than other communities, but in Eversource, they've had lots of squirrel contacts. The other communities, they have them too. I wouldn't really take it against the utilities for animal, contacts like that. I mean, it's quite common. They have them all over. This is one of the biggest and highest causes of failures in most utilities. And, well, there's only so much you could do. You could put animal guards on them, and, but it still doesn't guarantee that, they're not going to make the contact.
Well, plus, I think the population's up.
Yeah, that's right. The population is up.
Right? Oh.
Also, we've got lots of problems with the snakes and rats that they get into underground switch gears and through the conduits. It's wet. Whenever it's raining a lot, it attracts them. It's warmer inside. They just seems that's their sanctuary. So they get in there, they make a contact, and all of a sudden, the switch blows up. They don't realize that it cost us probably $60,000 for that switch.
Apparently, the acorn amounts were significant last year, which led to
oh, is that right? Really?
Increase in
wow.
survival and birth rate.
Yeah.
So but I mean, to the point, the slide on outages causes, that's really 1 month. Year to date is just 1 month of.
This is for the month. The stuff that you see in red. This is for the month of, for the entire year. I'm sorry.
Entire year, okay.
That's right.
So
that's for the entire year of
compare.
2018.
Right, yeah.
Okay, year to date.
Yeah.
Since from January all the way to June, they did the report. This
it's a
is
big
how it
improvement.
shows,
Chairman.
Yeah, and then you see the 5-year average, for all of those categories. These are the stuff that we report back to APPA. As a part of the e-reliability track software, and then they put it on the database and they compare us against others, how well we're doing, and we've got a quite impressive system to compare us against other communities.
I have one question for you. Can you address the readiness the department would have should we have an incident like took place in the Merrimack Valley?
Mm-hmm.
With all those, with the gas explosions, and our readiness should something like that happen here.
Where they shut down the electricity.
We shut down the electricity and
it's
stuff
nothing
like
that we could control because we don't control the gas.
That's
lines.
right. Well, we are as ready as any other communities. I mean, we are a little bit ahead of them because we got, emergency management plan, which means that, we got crews, they respond, we got mutual aid at our, that they're going to help us should something happen. We also have contractors on site that, they are assisting us right now with all those constructions that they're going. So we are prepared to respond to any kind of emergencies if it happens. And during a time like that, if you get lots of help from other communities, but for ours, it's manageable. So we have plenty resources available that they could support us if we need to.
Okay. Want to move on to our procurement, or is there anything more?
No, I'm good.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Is this also you, Hamid, or?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I
Want the
got,
motion? Motion first.
Please.
Move that bid 2019-1 for 115 kV pole replacement project be awarded to Mass Bay Electrical Corporation for $120,585 pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30, Section 39M, as the lowest responsible and eligible bidder on the recommendation of the general manager.
Second?
No,
Hamid, do you want to?
you want me to explain what it is? Okay.
Yeah.
As you know, we got two 115 kV lines. Those are 211-503, 211-504 that they feed Station 4. That's our bulk electric supply station. So if you recall, we tested the poles and stuff. Some of the poles on both lines, they show that, they have reached the end of their life. And actually, this should have been a long time ago. But we catch them, so we schedule them to be repaired and maintained. Last year, we took care of one line, 211-503, and now that one is excellent. It's in good shape. This year, we're going to take care of the other line, the 504 line, which is, we have to replace poles, we have to replace the entire structure, and, upgrade them so they're in good shape. They're not going to fail, but, these are the preventative maintenance that we do to guarantee, and not guarantee, but at least do what we can and what we know the best to keep them in good working conditions. Because, unless if the plane falls or anything else that, it's beyond our control, they should be in good shape. So the bid was sent to 17 bidders, and out of those 17, 5 that they responded. The lowest responsive bidder was Mass Bay Electrical Corporation for $120,585. Those are very reputable contractors, and they do a good job on 115 kV lines.
Mhm.
Ready for a vote?
Yep.
All in favor?
Mhm.
Yep. Motion passes 4-0.
Yep.
Thank you.
Next meeting.
Can I make a comment, Dave? Just to add to that, the RMLD is not equipped with the bucket reach or anything like that to work on 115 kV lines. Otherwise, it would be one of our specialties, but we just, it wouldn't be cost, to have that type of equipment.
Right.
And if I could add one more thing back on the reliability. So we just, through NEPA, we hired a company called Workplace Safety, and we self-audited, because you know how much I love self-auditing. I always want to know where we are. So we did a self-audit on OSHA, because as I've said before, February 2019, we have to be OSHA compliant, all municipals across the board. So they did a very comprehensive audit for 2 days, the beginning of the week. And it's, it's the system, our trucks, they look at policies, procedures, housekeeping, A to Z. It's going to take a little bit to come out with the report. I've asked them to be extremely thorough, but we did well. So just so you know, we're heading towards that. The Department of Labor and Statistics will be, handling this in the future, but we're in good shape as I thought we would be. So we got some things that we need to improve, and that'll be in the report, and we'll do that when it comes out. We'll make a presentation, but that'll probably be in a couple meetings from now.
Great.
Great.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Very good.
I think we're getting to the end.
Yep.
Any more discussion from anybody?
No.
No. Do we want to try to schedule a meeting about the policy 30 before the 18th of October, or?
Sure.
Okay.
I would only suggest that in terms of urgent versus important and strategic, I think getting the town payment, if there's going to be a conflict in our inability to get 2 meetings
You know what?
done.
You're right. I completely agree with you, and we don't have to rush through this other policy. We have time to think it through. I don't think it's holding anything up or anybody's waiting for it, right? So.
Well, can I make a comment about the
Please.
meeting? So something happened awesome last night at the CAB meeting, and Dennis didn't mention it, so I will.
I was going to mention it because just look at the dates.
Oh, you were? Oh, okay, I don't want to steal your thunder.
No, go ahead.
See if it's the same thing I was going to say.
It's going to happen on the same night?
Yeah,
Budget?
so every year for 5 years, I've said, why can't we just do the budget? It's one story, one night. So the CAB's going to do it in one night. So I'm going to ask you guys to do it in one night too, and you only have one meeting scheduled for October and 18th. So, and the reason why it's okay to do it one night is because, it used to be that you just were looking at that year and that was it, but now you have a 6-year budget. You know everything that's coming.
Right.
We go over every single dime that we're spending, and so the picture is there. So to me, it's not really a 2-session budget, but that's for you to decide. But I didn't strong arm George, but they are going to do it on October 9th.
The only reason we did it was 2 nights is because that's what we always did.
You could try it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But that
fine with
moved our
me.
meeting from the 17th to the 9th. So our 17th meeting, I don't think we're doing, because George and I were away.
Right, so
Which
you-
makes this
yeah.
budget meeting now the 9th, so looks like, John, you were supposed to sit in on the 17th.
On 17th, right?
But it's got, now on the 9th, and we're gonna do the whole budget that
So
night.
it's October 9th?
Yep.
Yeah, you okay with that date?
I'm just checking here now.
It's a great idea. Whose idea was it?
Do it, Colleen's.
I actually asked for that instead of a raise,
Okay, well,
but
then can we still rescind that vote?
Yeah, October 9th is fine, yep.
Okay.
You are feeling sick, Colleen.
Let me know if something comes up, you got a problem.
Yeah, and I'll be coming back from California that night, so I should be
Yeah,
okay.
okay, if you got a problem, let me know.
Thank you.
Do we need to schedule that payment subcommittee meeting, or we do that
Wait,
offline?
she's gotta coordinate with everybody's
Got it,
schedule.
of course, yes.
Yeah,
Um,
you coordinate the schedule.
So otherwise, we're good. And then in terms of the cab meetings, actually, if I could switch with somebody, because the one in November happens to be on my birthday, so much as I would love to.
What better
spend it with you, Dennis.
No, come
Better
on.
to celebrate.
Nothing personal, Dennis, but,
Do you want to switch the 14th
Sure.
of November?
yeah, if I could.
I mean, can you take the 19th of December?
Sure.
I'll send out an email.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, I'm happy to switch if you want to do that.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
You can do your Christmas shopping at the
I
end
can.
of the kid.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You done,
We doing executive session tonight?
Well, do we still?
We still doing?
Yeah, we have another executive session, or
I only put it on there in case we needed it.
do we,
so-
Kelly?
Right, so,
The determination uniqueness, let me explain for you why we need it and what happened to that. We put it on schedule because we were supposed to get the PNS last week, actually. So we know exactly how much the offer is. Nothing guaranteed that we're not going to go by what they're offering. Probably there's going to be negotiating going back
So
and
should
forth.
we wait and not talk about this now?
I would say if you wait on it, that would be the best thing to do.
We don't need to go into an
We
exec-
don't need to go for
Okay.
now. So the next time in October, we're going to do that. Obviously, 30 days after you guys vote and approve that, we're going to have to wait 30 days. Actually, put it on the central register and wait 30 days after before we execute any bonding agreement.
And, thank you.
Contract, so-
And just as a quick capstone on that long discussion that I initiated on the policy 30, I guess the bottom line for me is I think the board should be doing more thinking about it than we've done. So I really want to it's more on us, it's on me, than tweaking something that came up. So I just want to take ownership of it, and it's nothing wrong with how the tweak was done. But we would like the board to think more about it. So,
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
okay.
Second?
All right, all in favor? Aye, and that's it.
Okay.
No,
Mr.
we
Talbot, aye?
already pulled the board.
Okay.
We're not going to executive session, so
Okay. Then I guess
Thank
we're
you.
done.
we're done.
Great, thank you.